This is our Thursday night episode of the Property Sourcing Success Show, our podcast. So welcome back. For those of you that are completely new to the community, my name's Danielle Bell, and tonight I want to delve into a vital topic. Now, this is really important. This is a vital topic, guys, and it can significantly impact your property portfolio building business. And so I want to talk tonight about branding that hits the mark within your property business. So we'll discuss how the right branding can attract a more qualified and a higher caliber of investor clients. And let's be honest, there are so many cowboy investors running around. There are so many rogue investors running around. There are so many 21-year-old boys that have done their 2-day crash course that come out and claim to be investors. And are they the type of people that you really want to be working with within your portfolio building business, which is also the same as your sourcing business, deal packaging business? It's all one and the same. Are they the types of investors that you want to be working with to scale your portfolio building business? I can categorically, hands down now, tell you absolutely not. So let's get started. First things first, right? What is a brand? So firstly, guys, let's define what a brand actually is. I'm looking at this from the perspective of your property business. So a brand is much more than just a logo. A brand is much more than just your catchy tagline or strapline. And I want to really hone in on that, because so many people I speak to, whether it's in our free community or people who have reached out to us for more dedicated support inside our mastermind program, I cannot tell you how many people have spent an eternity picking out a logo, picking out a color swab on Canva, getting their website colors just right with the font. It blows my mind. A brand is not that. A brand is not your website. A brand is not the color of your business cards. A brand is not, does my look big in this brand new We Buy Houses boiler suit that I bought? No. A brand is a perception that people have of your business. And really what it does is it encompasses your values, it encompasses your mission, and essentially the overall experience that you want to provide to your investor clients. And this is really important. Why is branding so important? A strong brand, guys, within your portfolio building business, it builds trust and it builds credibility. And in an industry where skepticism is already at an all-time high, the importance of having a brand to build trust, to build credibility, has never been more required. Really what it does, if you do this right, is that it really just differentiates you from your so-called competitors. And what it really does is it conveys what your USP is, what your unique selling proposition is. And when I touch upon competitors, here's what I would say. There are so few of us in the property industry who actually do portfolio building to a really high standard, that actually becoming very good at it and standing out in the crowd isn't that hard. The reality is most people don't know the key areas that they need to focus on in order to kind of get themselves out of the doldrums and get themselves out of the gutter with the people who have done the crash courses and want the BMV all money out deeds. So when you have a brand that resonates with your target audience, you're more likely to attract the right clients. Now, this is important because, again, most people don't know who their target audience is. So if you are running a portfolio building business and you have been finding yourself attracting all sorts of Tom, Dicks and Harrys for conversation, it's almost 100% certain that your messaging, that your content, what you're saying when you're in front of these people is completely off. So first things first, you do 100% need to figure out, who is my ideal client, right? Who is it my ideal client? Is it the first time investor? I strongly discourage you from that. Is it the business owner that's super busy? Is it somebody from out of town? Is it overseas expat investors? Is it ex-colleagues that I know are sitting on some money? Is it family members who I know have saved and set aside? You need to figure out who is the ideal target audience before you can attract the right clients. So how do you set about building a brand that is synonymous with professionalism? How do you go about setting up a brand within portfolio building that is synonymous with credibility? And you have to start by defining your brand identity. So consider what it is you want your brand to represent. Is it your values? Is it your mission and the message that you want to communicate? And you need to know that. You absolutely need to know that. Whenever I was kicking my business off the ground about 8 years ago now, for me, I was all about it. It's even signed off in all my emails now. If you get my emails on a daily basis, you will see at the bottom I sign it off with hungry mummy. And for me, that was my value, that was my drive, that was my mission. I was a hungry mum in the sense of ambition, in the sense of hunger, in the sense of drive to do more, to have more, to be more, and creating that kind of wealth legacy for my family. And that's what I give myself the tagline of. And to this day, I mean, I have branded caps that I thankfully never wear anymore, but I was all about that. My mission was creating a business model for my family that allowed me financial wealth and security further down the line. We were doing it through the vision of portfolio building. And then it came as really no surprise that a lot of my portfolio building clients were females because they identified with my values. They identified with my missions and the message that I wanted to communicate, which was building wealth through property by any means necessary, for my family, being hungry, driven, and ambitious. You need to look at what drives you. What are your values? What are your missions? This is what we need to communicate. Now, the second thing that we need to look at, guys, is actually the importance of branding in 2025 as a whole, right? Now, let's talk about why it's crucial to build a standout brand, not just a brand, a standout brand in 2025, especially in the property sourcing industry. Here's the reality. There is an ever-increasing competition and there is a massive saturation in the market. A well-defined brand within your property business can give you a serious competitive edge. Now, I am also going to caveat, like I said 5 minutes ago, there are so many people out there doing portfolio building and property sourcing so diabolically wrong that actually, if you actually got yourself out of second gear and really give this your all, you would stand out rather easily. But you need to have a well-defined brand to give you a competitive edge, especially in an age where everything's digital, everything's online. Your prospective potential investor, they are bombarded with choices every day, just so you know. You're not the only face they see on a day-to-day basis when it comes to building their portfolio. You are not. Your ego needs to remove itself from the window because you're not the only person they see. A compelling brand, guys, grabs the attention, but it also, and this is important, it communicates your expertise and, really key, your reliability at a glance. So it's an essential way to create a brand that not only stands out, but also builds, I suppose, a bit of an emotional connection with your audience. And again, I'm going to go back to my own initial mission and values and the tagline that I gave myself, which was hungry mummy. Some people confused it at the time for hungry money. That's not what it was. Hungry mummy. So it was supposed to I was identifying myself as an ambitious, as a driven, as a very, very career-orientated, success-driven mother. And so that's what I wanted to build into my property values, and it's stuck. So you really do want to be able to build an emotional connection with your audience, however you may see fit. Whatever your backstory is, and this is the thing, so many people think, I don't have a story. Yes, you do. We all have a story. We all have a story. So when investors see your brand, you want them to feel confident in your abilities and you want them to feel like inspired to work with you. That is why it's particularly important, as trends and client expectations evolve, you have to stay relevant, really have to stay relevant. And with that, let's address, I suppose, a pretty important aspect of branding that really can be overlooked. And this one is key. Actually, this was the spur for my hoping that you guys would pick the branding mini class tonight. But within the world of property sourcing and portfolio building, you will often see people with about 7 different avenues of their business because they've got, the We Buy Houses website here. And then we have a separate website over here for investor-facing clients. And then over here, they've got another direct-to-vendor marketing campaign that's going on. Here's the reality. You're doing nothing but unintentionally confusing your prospective client, which should always be front and center, your investors, because the reality is, without investors in your portfolio building business, you ain't got jack to do. Okay, and I know that they will tell you that if the deal is good enough, the money will follow. And I'm here to tell you now that is absolutely 100% categorically balls. That's not true. Is there a caveat to that? Yes. When you have built up enough experience and reputation in the industry, then you've got a proven track record and you've got the war wounds to go with it. And I can assure you, if you don't have war wounds from your property journey as yet, they are on their way. But take it from me, unless you are in this game for a few years and you have done several deals, there is very little chance that if the deal is good enough, the money will follow. So you need to have investors on your books, and I'm sure we've done other podcast episodes on this, but if your investor is not officially onboarded with a commitment fee paid, they're not a investor, they are just your pen pal. But here's the reality. Having all these different faces to your business, the We Buy a House website, the investor-facing website, the direct-to-vendor Facebook page, you're confusing the shit out of your audience. And so it might seem beneficial to have, specialized platforms catering to different segments. The reality is it dilutes your brand message. So when clients, investors encounter different versions of your business, different styles, different tones of your portfolio building business, and maybe messages, it just confuses the touch points. And here's the thing, it creates inconsistency. Really, and listen, inconsistency is the biggest catalyst to wondering, can this person be trusted? If you are inconsistent with your approach, it leads to a lack in confidence with your prospective investor. Lack of trust, confusion about what your brand truly stands for. So instead, it's best to cultivate one streamlined face of your portfolio building business. So a cohesive brand, a cohesive message across all your platforms. This just serves to reinforce your identity, but also it enhances your company's recognition in the marketplace, in your area, doing what you do. So when they see the same branding, when they see the same values, and when they hear the same voice consistently, they are more likely to actually feel secure in their decision to reach out to you, have a conversation with you, schedule a call with you, meet you for a coffee. So we know what the importance is of maintaining a unified brand, but then you have to look at how can you build a brand to stand out in property portfolio building for 2025. And look, if you've been tuning into the podcast here every week, the Property Source and Success podcast, you know that I'm a big advocate for making these sessions as short as I possibly can, but also making sure that we really jam in as much of the valuable information as we can in a 10 to maybe 15-minute episode. And I always want to make sure that anybody who tunes into the podcast has actionable steps that they can take the moment that they stop listening. So 5 action points that you can take away and implement tonight, tomorrow morning, over the weekend, right? This is a record. You can pause and you can listen back, but here they are, the 5 things. Number 1, I want you to define what your unique USP is in your portfolio building business. So I want you to sit down, take the time to articulate what makes your business unique. What do you offer that others don't? So this could be specialized knowledge. This could be your unique services. It could be a particular approach to property sourcing, but you need to ensure that this value proposition is clear in all your branding materials. I'll give you an example. I came from a corporate background in financial analysis, easy for me to say, which meant that I rather sadly knew my way about an Excel spreadsheet better than most. Numbers were my thing. I talked about that consistently to my clients. I talked about that consistently in my marketing. I talked about that any opportunity I got, that I was highly skilled in financial analysis, that I worked for one of the largest financial institutions in the world, which was the New York Stock Exchange. I told everybody that. And guess what? It stuck. Do you have to work for the New York Stock Exchange? No. But whatever your USP is, maybe you're an absolute expert in your location in Leeds. Whatever that is, you need to talk about it. Maybe you're a portfolio landlord yourself. Speak up. Tell us about it. The second thing that you need to do, guys, is you need to develop a consistent visual identity. And I hear this so much. I spoke to somebody this week and they said, well, I'm kind of online there. I'm there twice a week. Excuse me, what? Twice a week? Dead on. So you need to have a really cohesive visual identity. And that's going to include your logo. That's going to include what your color scheme is. Yes, that's going to include what your font looks like and imagery. But this consistency needs to be reflected above all your platforms. So if you are having multiple websites, which I don't advise that you do, make sure it's branded across them all. I don't want different faces for different platforms. The third thing that you need to do is craft a really compelling brand story. Share your journey about the purpose behind your business. And this is what I do know to be true, because for the last 4 and a bit years, I have dedicated my time to helping people who are trying to start, grow, and scale portfolio building businesses to get it to a level where 9 times out of 10, it's to replace their corporate salary. It's to get their time and freedom back within their own family life. And I know, because I've spoken to so many of you guys, there is a story behind each and every one of you. And that story that you think that nobody else wants to hear, who wants to hear my boo-hoo story about working a corporate job and, being in debt at one point in time, having money spent on expensive rounds of IVF, that is exactly what built my brand. So the story that you're telling yourself nobody wants to hear is exactly the story you should tell to build your business and get noticed. A compelling brand story, guys, resonates with potential clients and it creates an emotional connection. So you want to make sure that this story is really kind of woven into your branding and your communications. The fourth thing that I need you to do is to engage with your audience. And this sounds so simple. This really sounds simple. I had a conversation with Jess. Sorry for naming and shaming Jess, but Jess is one of the stellar ladies that we have in our 6-figure sourcing mastermind. And when I was quizzing her on her engagement with the people that she has and her subscribers and her newsletter, she said she didn't engage at all. At that point, I almost had a heart attack, because that is leaving a ton of investor money on the table. So use social media and other platforms, guys, to interact with your audience authentically. This is important. You're going to want to share your valuable insights. You will want to respond to comments. You will want to foster discussions around property sourcing. Ask questions, be inquisitive, be intrigued. Kind of get into the mindset of that 6 or 7-year-old child where it's just ask without any expectation. So building the relationships will enhance your brand's credibility, and it will ultimately attract a higher caliber of client. And I think this is the real pandemic in the portfolio building business at the moment. There are so many rogue investors out there. It can be hard to separate the wheat from the chaff, but I can tell you this now, it becomes a hell of a lot easier to figure who your fillet steak investor is versus who your McDonald's cheeseburger is if you've got the right branding in place, because it will only attract a certain level of client. And I definitely know this to be true. So wrapping up today's mini session, guys, what I really want you to do is remember that, look, effective branding is an ongoing process. It's evolving. It will always evolve, and it has to evolve to stay relevant. And it requires regular reflection. It requires regular adaptation to ensure that it continues to represent your business accurately and attract the right kind of client. So the key takeaway on this session today is really to maintain a unified brand message. Have one streamlined face for your business so you can build a stronger, more recognizable brand that actually speaks to the person that you want to work with. And side note, again, I also know this to be true. Your ideal type of investor is almost always a version of you in a very subtle manner. Almost always. So think about what you would be attracted to. Think about what you would be engaged with. Think about what you would find impressive. Think about what would encourage you to reach out to someone for portfolio building, and build your business around that. Because it is much more easier to build a business around who you really are than it is to build a business around somebody that you pretend to be. It's really important. So here's what I'll say to you guys. Thank you for tuning in to the Property Sourcing Success Show. So if you found this valuable tonight, please let me know in the comments. Rate me on the podcast. What I will say to you guys, for anybody tuning into the podcast, you may have seen my email today, and you're certainly going to get an email from me over the course of the weekend. But we have an exceptional opportunity coming up for property business owners who have been running their business for a minimum of 12 months. So we're really looking at maybe your independent estate agents, maybe your independent letting agents, and certainly your property management companies. If that is you, and you are acutely aware that you are leaving quite a bit of money on the table by not being able to monetize all the options that land on your desk, keep an eye on your emails over the weekend, because I have something coming up that I think you might really want to know about. All that said and done, guys, go and have a lovely Thursday. I hope this has been useful. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Rate the podcast, share the podcast, and I'll see you all again next week. Thanks, guys.